Typically, when do you see pediatric palliative care becoming involved, and what does that look like for patients and families?
When should specialist pediatric palliative care become involved? It is dependent on the case, on the family scenario, on the comfort of the team managing. But often we do our best work when we are involved at diagnosis and support a family from the time of diagnosis with decision making and symptom management, then all the way through to through a child's end of life, or sometimes transition into the adult world. That can happen as early as in utero, where we do prenatal consults for a fetus that's been diagnosed with a life-threatening, life-limiting condition, and support the family through that journey in utero and after birth, whether a child lives for moments or decades. So it can begin very early on, and our role is as flexible as it needs to be to meet the needs of the family and the child at that time. So how does it look for patients and families? While we look at quality of life now in the moment, we also look at quality of life in the future and challenges that may be ahead of the child as anticipated based on the best estimates of their medical teams and in the literature that exists. We try to look at what challenges the child may face in the future, both challenges to their quality of life, challenges to their function, and challenges to the length of their life, and ideally help families plan for those. And that can take the form of a symptom management plan in case things aren't going well. We also take the role of an advanced care plan to say, if the child is critically unwell, what are we looking for in terms of technologies to support the child's life, or to accept the limitations on the child's life and ensure their comfort while they pass away. Certainly end-of-life care, when a child is nearing their end of life, there is a need for experience and expertise to guide the family through those last moments, hours, weeks, and support them with forewarning about what to expect, guiding them through the steps, certainly treating symptoms as they arise, preparing for the end of life, and discussing things like organ and tissue donation, funeral planning. We also play a role in bereavement follow-up to support families, ensuring that they end up with ideally a nest of support around them, which may come from professionals, may come from community members, but supports to help them in their bereavement journey. And I think it's a really important role that we play that bridges the time of the child's life to the bereavement journey of the family, because if there are unanswered questions or uncertainties that the family holds, and they go off into the bereavement world outside of the acute healthcare system for which their child had care, they may never be able to get the answers that they're looking for from a bereavement counselor out in the community about, remind me, what were the findings on the MRI again? Why did we make this decision? I gave this medication. Is there any chance the medication could have contributed to their end of life? Like these questions come up even sometimes when deep down a parent knows that that isn't the case. The medication didn't contribute. Sometimes they really need to hear that to stop those thoughts from running through their head as they lie down at bedtime. And so we try to bridge that gap, not to provide long-term bereavement support, but transitional bereavement support is the term. So that relationship with families, we really focus on those things, trying to make each day the best day it can be, being prepared for the next day, and that our journey with them may be days or maybe decades, and we support them through that.
What are some of the common challenges encountered in pediatric palliative care?
There are a great many challenges. So first off, we all acknowledge that it isn't fair, and it shouldn't be the case where children don't have the opportunity to grow up, to live long, where parents outlive their children. It is grossly and brutally unfair. So there is a great degree of grief, and grief can act as a major barrier to a therapeutic relationship if you don't actually delve into it. Often families may be reluctant to have advanced care conversations, as an example, it comes from a place of fear and grief and anxiety. And sometimes the right way to approach that is to first address the grief and the fear and the anxiety and normalize them and accept them and support the family with those as we guide them through the decisions that they will be faced with at some point or another, and to be able to face those decisions with, in advance, not in a moment of crisis, and with clear minds is typically a great benefit for parents rather than deciding in crisis. Apprehension about communicating with children about their condition is another common challenge. We now have a robust body of literature that's been growing over the past 40 years about how children handle medical information, and in fact, when informed in a developmentally appropriate manner, and support is provided around them, most children can cope and do better with the information rather than being left to wonder on their own. Children are very intuitive. They pick up on signs from their parents, their medical team. They have almost always more understanding of what's going on than we give them credit for. And there is a great desire to protect them from the truth of the world by their parents, by their healthcare team. But sometimes that protection, although coming from a good place, can actually be somewhat harmful by leaving the child left alone in their worries, in their concerns, in their anxieties. And when we open the door to communication, we're able to support them together. One child put it that after hearing the news, he said, I'm sad, but it's better to be sad than to be alone. And before, when he had suspicions and he had concerns, he felt alone because he couldn't communicate with anyone about that.
Is there anything else that you'd like to add?
I would also just highlight that our medical system isn't particularly designed for the needs of these families in particular. Our system is typically very jurisdictional based. This is hospital, this is community, this is Hamilton, this is Kitchener, we've got all of these borders and boundaries and these families are often dependent on a pediatric tertiary center, but often live in these small communities. They bounce back and forth. It can be challenging for them to see and maintain a relationship with their family doctor because they're getting so much care at the necessary care at the children's hospital. It can be really challenging for parents to look after their own health, parents particularly, because they inevitably prioritize the needs of their children and are unable to take the time for themselves to maybe go see their family doctor and check in about their mental health, or a counselor, or even to go for a run or to go to the gym. Our families, our parents continuously sacrifice their own health and well-being, and we are always striving to not only support our children better, but